Y bueno, porque no la veo. Renee, are you there?
I'm here. I'm here. Can you?
Hi, how are
Hello.
you?
I'm well. How are you?
Fine, we're super excited to have you here with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for organizing it. A lot of people to organize.
No, and we're super excited to talk to you because it was one of the most controversial books we've ever discussed. We hardly ever discuss thrillers because I feel like not a lot of thrillers have like book club like discussions. Like they give a lot to talk about, but this one was amazing, Renee. We're very, very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting. Let me tell you a little about ourselves, and then we prepared some questions so
Okay.
we can ask them. This book club became, well, we started this book club in 2020 with the pandemic. So we are almost having our 4th anniversary. And we become not just people who discuss books, we have become friends and have taken trips together and go to dinner a lot. So it has evolved from being a book club to being like a friends book club. And we gather once a week, no, twice a week to discuss the books. And this one was our first book of 2024. And then after we read it, we saw that it's going to be converted into a Netflix series. Wow.
It is. It's going to be Apple, actually. It's going to be on Apple later this
Wow.
year. I think it's going out. Yeah.
We're so excited. We're all super fans and we're all going to be the first ones to see it.
Sounds a great
So,
book club, actually. Really unusual, isn't it?
yes. Can you tell us a little about like, I mean, it's just the ending is, oh my God, with the ending. I read a lot of thrillers because I love the genre, but I have been telling these guys this since I read it. This is the best thriller I have ever read in my life.
Oh,
It's amazing. Really, I promote it and I buy it and give it as gifts. Like you give me royalties, Renee.
I certainly will. Yeah.
But I really, really think that this is like what a thriller should be because it really does surprise you at the end because most thrillers don't end up surprising you. And this one was like, oh my God, and oh my God, how we immediately judge Catherine and immediately judge all the other characters. And at the end, it's like a life opening last part of the book. So tell us about how you came to be because this was your first book, right?
Well, it sort of is and it isn't. First published book. So I was watching Bonnie's one that she did with the book club that
Yeah,
she did with you. And she also, I was interested to see, had written a book that didn't get published. And the same
yeah.
for me. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
I
So
think it is, guys, because you guys publish like wait and then publish and then it becomes a series. So it's amazing.
I don't, yeah. So this one came about because the first book that I wrote, I got my agent through, and she was very excited about this book, the one that never got published. And it wasn't autobiographical, but it touched on things with a friend of mine during our adolescence. And the closer the book was about to be sent out to publishers, and this old friend of mine was now living in America, and I hadn't seen her for a long time. Then we were still in touch, and it suddenly came to me, I hadn't told her I was writing a book, and what if it did get published, and what if she read it? Oh, you've disappeared.
Everyone or just me? Yo?
There, I suddenly went mute. Don't know why.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
yeah, we can hear you.
so I then worried that the book would get published and my friend would read it. And that would be a terrible thing for me not to have warned her that, by the way, I've written this book. So I sent it to her. And while I was waiting for her, she took ages to read it. And partly just because she was busy, actually. You immediately think, God, she should read my book immediately. But she was busy. And it took her probably maybe 3-4 weeks to come back to me. And it was during that time that I began thinking, God, that would be quite a good idea for a book, to actually pick up a book and then find
Wow.
yourself in it. So that's where it started. And then from that, I sort of just developed and thought about, well, what would it be? What would be so horrifying about that? Partly because for me, anyway, reading is a sort of, on the whole, a safe place. It's one of the sort of the things I love doing
Mm-hmm.
at the end of a night, go to bed with a book. So it's so you're kind of cocooned and you're safe and you're feeling secure, even if you're reading a thriller.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, actually, if you're in that safe place and you come across something that is something that's really private and personal, there's something much worse somehow for me about it being within a book that's a sort of slow thing that you gently absorbs you, rather than, I don't know, something on the internet or a sort of, a flash
Yeah.
and so then I just began to think about, well, what could that thing be that you would, not want anyone to know, that's so private. And then slowly, and it wasn't until I assume everyone's read it, so I don't want to do any spoilers.
Yeah.
No,
We've all read
everyone's
it. We've all discussed it.
it's
Yeah. Yeah. No. I
it's
mean, and
quite
this is totally the book that you have to read until the last page to know. I mean, I was like, you can't come to the Zoom meeting if you haven't read it. And when we had the discussions in January, because everyone was like, yeah, we can. And I was like, no, this is one book you absolutely can't. So if you haven't finished it, wait. And then everyone knew why. And no, we've all read it and we've all discussed it. So you're safe. No
so
spoilers.
so it basically it was only sort of halfway through writing it. Actually, it sort of evolved in a way. It was almost as if I was sort of digging it up, that I didn't know when I'd worked out a structure, and I knew that it would be a two-hander between the writer of the book and Catherine, and that they wouldn't meet until quite late on. But it took me a while to kind of work out what the thing would be. And I came so it's sort of, I sort of dug it up in a way. It's a weird thing, writing. I think the things are always there and you're just sort of scraping away the earth until something emerges. So it wasn't, so
But
I didn't know right from the outset what the twist would be. And
wow.
then when it happened, I thought, oh yeah, no, that's
It's
it.
absolutely amazing. And how incredible. I mean, I love the story that you were waiting for your friend about a book you wrote about her. And then while you were waiting for her, the idea for this one came. So she's like a big inspiration in your life. How
She
fun.
is. She is. She knows she is too.
How fun. What we liked about this book is how like relatable Catherine is. Because even at the beginning, when you think she had an affair, and a big discussion was on the first session that we read half the book, everyone was like, why is she so upset because of an affair that happened like 25 years ago? She should have already, and I was like, wait, but we were like trying to understand how her mind works. And what we loved about the character, Catherine's character, is how relatable she was. I mean, I loved hearing her like mad at Robert, like, he's such an idiot that he left me and our child alone on vacation. And when she's saying about Nick, about her son, that I love him, but I don't really like him. So it's like a very relatable character, and things that sometimes we don't say because of fear of being judged or something. So like reading it, like it's like, yeah, I mean, I love my kid, but sometimes I don't like him. And the teenage years are difficult, and kids can be difficult. And sometimes you love your husband and sometimes you think like he's an asshole. And so it's a very relatable character. We're mostly women here, as you can see, so it was very relatable for all of us to be inside her mind. And in the first part, we didn't know what was happening, so it was like, well, she had an affair, she was young, and it's kind of weird that she had it with her son there, but well, and then we start seeing the transition, and it's like, oh my God, this was like a huge secret, and I mean, it totally shaped who she was, how she acted with Nick, her relationship with her husband. So how did you? Who's the inspiration? How did you get to that character? We loved her.
I suppose I just put myself in her shoes, really. I suppose I just thought, how would I feel? I mean, I used to make documentaries. I chose the profession because I understood that profession. So in a way, I didn't have to do too much. I didn't have to do any research on that because I didn't really want to get sort of bogged down too much in what she did and her. But I just kept thinking, how would I feel? But then I did the same with Stephen, the other character, and in a way, the old man. How would that feel? To have lost everything and then to have to the unbearable thing in a way of your son, the kind of hero, but also just knowing deep down that something wasn't quite right, and he has to question his marriage, his everything, actually.
Everything.
But I think it's just really trying to dig into how it would feel if you were in that position, and then just imagine yourself in that position.
Wow, it's incredible. You were spot on with Catherine's character, because she is so very relatable, and we could all understand how she was feeling and the nervousness. I mean, when I first read it, I was like very surprised. I was like, okay, I mean, it's an affair, but it's not like the end of the world. Why are you so stressed out? I mean, I can understand that it may be like your marriage ending, but it was like there's something else there, but no one here um grasps the ending. I mean, in thrillers, you're always like, well, maybe it's this person, maybe this happened, maybe that, and here, no one. It was like it blew our minds. So
But
we love the character. And then when I read it the second time to for the book club, I was like, okay, I understand like how complicated it was to write the book, Renee, for you, because you had to like put a lot of things that you could only understand when you reread them. So how is that process for you, or does it come naturally?
I did. I wrote and rewrote and rewrote, and I quite like that. I mean, I think it's probably the same for a lot of writers. I don't know, but I find the first draft really hard to do. It is like pulling your teeth out one by one, and then it's just rewriting and rewriting. And so I suppose you sort of interrogate, particularly with a book like that, where things could easily unravel if you're not careful. So you have to sort of interrogate each scene in a way, just to make sure that it works and it stands on its own, but also try
Wow.
not to cheat too much, because also I think you can end up, if there are too many, you can feel as a reader cheated. I think if there's been too much sleight of hand, where you feel something's deliberately been hidden from you that actually should have been, it can sort of snag as you're
Yeah.
reading, and you think, well, that's just cheating. So I tried not to cheat. I hope I didn't cheat. But it's
No, I
good that
think you
you
did it perfectly.
But I'm glad you didn't. It's interesting because obviously I wrote the book before the Me Too movement. And so it's interesting that I'm glad, it's gratifying that you didn't see the twist actually reading it more recently,
We
because I
did.
wonder whether new readers now might, I don't know, it's sort of more in our psyche. We
Yeah,
think
it's
about
something like you have in your mind now. It's something we all have in our
Yeah.
minds. But even with that, because I mean, it's all thrillers mislead you to think whatever the author wants you. I mean, it is misleading in
Mm.
that we thought about the photographs, and it was like, well, we even thought, I mean, at the beginning, I even thought that the one that had cheated on her husband was, I forgot her name, but Stephen's wife, because
Nancy,
of the
yeah.
photos. And so it's really interesting how it goes evolving. We don't feel cheated at all, or at least I don't. We can hear other comments later, but I don't think it was cheated. I think it was, I mean, what I told you at the beginning. I think it was the perfect twist to a perfect thriller, because in thrillers, it's like, and we discussed this in our meetings, it's like this happens and then this happens and then this happens, and at the end it's like, well, what was that about, and what was that about, and what was that about? And here we understood everything. I mean, even like the kid Stephen was like stalking, or I don't know if that's the word, but he was like stalking the kid, and at the end it's like, of course he was grieving for his son, and it was like substitute. So you understand the characters perfectly at the end. So I think it was just marvelous how you tied everything up, because normally in thrillers, some things are left like in limbo. And here, everything was tied up. So congratulations on what I think is like a perfect thriller.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You're kind.
Another thing that we thought was like a core theme of the book was Stephen, and how his character evolved, and how we judged him like super harshly at the beginning, because he was like, well, not a very good teacher, and
Yeah.
I even thought he was a pedophile. So it was like,
Yes.
they were like, no, not another book on pedophiles when we started reading.
No.
But so we thought a lot of things about Stephen, and how he was a very bitter and like very set on revenge against Catherine. But I loved the way he redeemed himself at the end, because he knew something was off with his son. And I think that is like a super, super hard truth for parents to accept, right? And
Yeah.
especially when they're dead. I mean, if they're here, you can say, okay, yeah, he's whatever. But if he's dead, I think it's like very, very complicated. So I loved how he started out as one thing, and then when Catherine went to talk to him, he was like, yes, I can believe it. It's totally true. I mean, I love the way he redeemed himself by doing that. Can you tell us more about his character? Was it hard to write? I mean,
I
he was
loved
like,
writing him most, actually. I liked writing him most because I suppose I really felt for him. I mean, I felt for both of them in a way. I mean, I felt for her, but I really felt for him too, because he lost so much, and he'd sort of believed in the marriage, not quite his son in a way. He obviously absolutely adored his wife, but it seemed like he was always slightly outside the relationship with his wife
yeah,
and his son, that they were the sort of very tight, because she was so protective. And I suppose I knew a few sort of elderly men at the time, so he kind of was in my head just physically. And just, I suppose, imagining what it would be like if you just lost everything, and just how slowly everything, how quickly it is actually for things just to sort of disintegrate around you. You lose the job. And I think also, and the principal, in a way, he was here. We have the sort of private school system and the public school system, which is the state school system. And his principles were very much of the state school, but actually ending up working in a private school as well, that even that was sort of eroded for him. His beliefs, his political beliefs, everything was sort of eaten away. And then it sort of manifests itself in him physically. But it's just a loss. He was a sort of walking ball of loss. He just lost everything. But I liked him, I suppose. I suppose I admire people who can face up to themselves and can face up to sort of ugly truths. And I think it takes
that's
a lot of courage,
courage.
actually. I think many of us just can't, actually. It's difficult. And so I liked him, even though he was unpleasant. Kind of
Yes, he was.
but I felt some empathy for him, and I wanted the reader to feel some empathy for him. But in a way, it was sort of playing with how we're always, all of us are quick to judge. I think it's rare to meet people who are non-judgmental. And I think they do stand out, actually. But it's
Totally.
a very rare quality and a very important one. But it shows a strength, I think, if you can sort of sit back. But we were all, I think the book, in a way, when it works, makes us all complicit in judging her, judging him. making assumptions about people's
That's,
behavior and why they behave
yeah,
in a certain way.
that's what happens with the book. We feel almost guilty, like we contributed like to her, not downfall, but like to her pain. And that's like another of the core things that I think is like a takeaway from this book, is that we always judge, and we are very quick to judge, and we are very, like, it's very hard to undo the first impression or the first judgment you make sometimes. And this book makes us complicit in Catherine's pain, and really it leaves you feeling like guilty for judging so quickly, and guilty for like always believing the worst thing always about people, right? Because even Jonathan, we're going to like another subject, but even Jonathan, at the end, it was like another big debate here, but I think that at the end he redeemed himself by saving Nicholas. What do you think? I'm going to tell you what we thought after you tell us what you meant in the book.
Well, I suppose just hearing someone at my front door. Sorry, I'm wondering who it is. I wanted him not to be, I mean, I can't bear characters just being black or white, and nobody is black or white. And so I think he did an instinctive thing. He did an instinctive thing, which was to rescue a small child. So I don't think it was necessarily done cynically, but I think there was also quite a lot of machismo involved in that here was this physical thing that he could do.
Okay,
And in a way he did save Nicholas's life. There's no,
totally.
but
Well, and that's another thing. I'm going to go back to Catherine for a second, but I loved when I loved like her self-awareness, because she was like, I can't get in, I can't save him because I'm like so afraid. And I loved her self-awareness. I mean, I know that she was like very young there, but you did a perfect job in portraying like the fears we have, and like the kid is her child is like the most important thing in her world, but she can't make herself go save him because she's afraid. It's like an internal debate all parents have all the time. So I loved that part. Sorry, I just had to make that segue because I loved it that she hesitated to go save her child. And going back to Jonathan, there was a huge debate here in book club, because I thought, along the lines of what you said, that he's not black and white. He was there, and it's instinctual to try to go save someone. But then someone said no. He was there because he was still stalking her, and he wanted to make her feel like she should still be afraid of him, and like, I'm always going to be near you. And he tried to save the kid, so she would be like in debt to him. And I was like, no, that's like, he's a super, that would be like super psycho. But we had like this debate going on there, but you just solved it for us, Renee.
I mean, I think it's interesting because I remember that the one of the editors wanted me to really, she wanted it sort of nailed down and explained, why did he do it? And I didn't want to do that, because sometimes I think it's better to let a reader interpret, actually.
Yeah.
And there are some things you can never know. You know, there are some things you just don't know, actually. And, you know, you accept there is no answer to them. I mean, I sort of know what I feel his motivation was, and I think it was just because he was there, and it was a physical thing. And
Yeah.
but I don't think it wasn't a premeditated, I'm going to be there and find her on the beach. But I think he was such a damaged young man.
But I love what you're saying, that you leave it to the reader, like, to find out or to interpret what happened. And I love that you phrased it that way, like, you don't know because he's dead. You don't know, you're not in his bed. And there are some things we never know, and we just interpret based on our beliefs and our life experiences, just like everything else. Another thing that we talked about is how well or not really do we know our children, our spouses, our friends, ourselves. And it's like, I don't think we even know ourselves enough, let alone your spouse. Or there was a part where she said, I knew everything about her, that Robert says that I knew everything about her. And it was like, yeah, right, dude. So do you think we really know each other, or are we always a mystery to everyone?
I think there are always elements of mystery in a relationship. I mean, I think you know as much, I mean, in a good relationship, you know as much as you can, but there must always be little pockets, I'm sure, that you don't. Sorry, can you give me 1 second?
Yeah. Go answer. Oigan, se me olvidó tomar la foto. Déjenme decirle ahorita que regrese, ¿no? Entonces, ¿qué?
Sorry, I beg your pardon. It was my son coming back and I was just trying to avoid him bursting in.
We always have accidents like that.
And then
like
you saw my... I know, and you saw my tatty tracksuit bottoms. I'm smart from the...
Renée.
Anyway, I think...
Go ahead, sorry. I'm going to silence this mic. Yeah, sorry.
Was somebody asking a question?
No. It's just someone opened their mic by accident.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Okay. I mean, I suppose, yes, I suppose it's quite frightening in a way, the idea that the person you think you know better than anyone else, actually you don't, or you may not, and it may just be tiny little things, but we never quite know how each other are going to react in certain situations. You know, if you're really up against it, or, you know, so, and I think I mean, obviously in her marriage, that was a big secret. And it was interesting actually because it came out before Me Too, not so many women, but a few men would say, well, I don't understand why she just didn't tell her husband in the first place. And interestingly, since Me Too, people don't say that anymore. Nobody says that. And I think it's understood why women don't immediately.
And I don't know, I mean, it was like another thing to add to. I mean, Catherine got raped. She went through all that ordeal, and then he died. So I think that it's like still more complicated when he died. I mean, if he would have been alive, I don't know, you can just, I think you can let it go easier, like you're not going to see him again. But since he died saving your child, it's like you're going to think about him always, not just in terms of the trauma.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
That was like the amazing part of the twist, Renée, that because it's like so intertwined with guilt and with anger and with all types of things. I mean, you even feel guilt, not with him, but with your kid. And you feel like, I mean, you even feel stupid for leaving keys on the door, which I've done a million times. I mean, we all do things when we have small children and we're sleep deprived and we're tired and we're frustrated and we just want time for ourselves. And things happen, and sometimes accidents happen, and sometimes things like this happen, and we always tend to blame ourselves. And here's like an example when she was even trying to blame herself, and we're seeing it from outside and we're like, no, don't blame yourself, but we always do it. So you see, I mean, that's what I loved her character. I know I'm repeating myself, but I really, really do think that she was like a perfect character. Her reactions were spot on, like what happens in our minds when we have young children and when they're older, and our relationship with our spouse has evolved. So it was a great character. I don't know if she's also based on your friend, but
no, she's not. My friend would have been in that water.
And can we talk about Robert?
Mm-hmm.
Just that Robert, it was like another thing that we took ages discussing, because some people were like, he is a total asshole, and some others were like, well, he's normal. I mean, his reactions were normal. I think that it's very complicated to know that your wife, let alone the story that she was raped, but that kept a secret so big during your whole marriage. So some of us justified his behavior as well. He's like coming to grips with his emotions and everything. And others was like, no, he treated her like so badly. She should never have gotten back with him, and she should never forgive him. So what do you think? Was that like, I mean, did you frame him like to make a debate possible, or what? Tell us about
I
Robert.
I think he was so quick. I think his jealousy ate him up, and his own sense of power, really, actually, that his sort of outrage. I suppose it was his outrage that made me quite angry, actually, that his outrage that she should have any secret life, even if she had had an affair, that actually, and even though it was so long ago, not that he would be upset, of course he'd be hurt and upset, but there was something more than that. There was something sort of quite controlling about him. He wasn't an excessive, on the outside, he wouldn't appear to be an excessively controlling or abusive husband, and he wasn't abusive. But there was a sort of dynamic, I think, within their relationship where he felt he had a right to everything, to sort of every piece of information and everything about her. And then in a way which she really can't forgive him for is as at the end when he's so nice to her, when suddenly it's like somehow this is more acceptable to him because it makes, it's not, he doesn't feel the jealousy. In a way, it allows him to be more of a man about it. So he can sort of find himself again at her expense in a way. I mean, that's quite a harsh way of looking at it, I know.
It is.
But,
no, it is, but that's what I mean, it was also very relatable because he was like a normal, I mean, before everything happened, he painted himself like as a normal husband. He was supportive of her job. He was proud of her. They had a good relationship. The only like sore point was Nick, but I mean, they appeared to have a nice, normal, caring relationship. And then he goes like completely off the grid about what happened. And it's like, wow, so you've been like keeping it all bottled up, or is this your true nature? And it's very impressive to see how he evolved from being a nice, normal husband to what he was when he thought it was an affair, to what he was at the end when he was like, okay, well, you got raped. It's better than what you're saying. Like, that permits me to keep being like the man, so it's okay. And there was a phrase that you wrote that I don't have it here written down, but I mean, I translated it, but it says something like he could manage the idea, he could easily manage the idea of her being raped easier than cheating on him. And it was like, wow, it's mind-blowing, because until I read that phrase, I was like, okay, they're back together. They're going to keep going and be a couple again. And when I read that, I was like, wow, I hadn't even thought about it until you phrased it that way. And it's something you don't want in your couple, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I suppose again, it felt the sort of, I don't know, it felt the natural evolution of him, actually, that would be that she would turn around and feel, well, they can't ever go back to the way they were because he'd also exposed himself. But it was more the change at the end, in a way. I think she probably could have forgiven him his anger, but not this you know, he was no longer an angry man. He wasn't angry about what had happened to her.
Yeah.
He was angry at what
And
he thought she had done.
we finished saying that, I mean, we started thinking that Stephen was a villain and that Jonathan was a villain. And at the end, it was like, well, the real villain is Robert, because Stephen is a random stranger. It is. I mean, Stephen is a random stranger that's like a very hurt person and he's acting out of revenge. But when push comes to shove, he accepted what he knew was wrong and in his own way tried to make amends. And Jonathan, I believe, as well as you, I mean, what you were trying to convey in your book, that he's not all bad, he's not all good, like everyone is. We all have shades of gray, and he redeemed himself by saving Nicholas. But Robert just turned out to be like a selfish, jealous, super like manly man that couldn't accept that his wife could have an affair without it like reflecting badly on him. So Robert is the person I ended up hating the most in this book. But it was also very well written because it gives a sort of other nuance to the book. I hadn't even really thought about what you said there, that he can be more accepting of a rape than her cheating on him, and it's very indicative of a lot of men that we all know that phrase, right?
Afraid so. Can be.
Yeah, I know. Guys, Renee, are you okay with us taking a picture
Yes.
of all of us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm afraid that some people are going to have to leave, like, to go for kids. Ay, voy, Maca.
I know, you've got little ones, haven't you?
Yeah. Okay, guys, everyone take out your book. Carito. Caro is going to take the picture, ¿sí, verdad? Okay. Okay, here.
Okay, ahí va.
Guys, espérame, Caro. Guys, put the book in front of you, because if you have it over here, you can't see it. So it has to be in front of you because of the green screen.
Okay, 1, 2. Photo number 1. I'm going to the next page. Okay, yes. 1, 2, 3. And there's only 2 pages. We're okay.
Okay. Thank you, Carito.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Renee. Just that we make like a collage of pictures. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you later.
Thank you. Do.
Guys, you guys have any questions? Maca, I saw your hand go up.
Hi, Renee. First of all, thank you very much for meeting us. I'm super excited about this soon. I enjoyed your book in a ridiculous way. I mean, I don't think I had ever been surprised like that during my adulthood reading life, you know, like it was fantastic. That being said, I kept thinking about it, and I started, you know, reading about you, because when I love a book, I have to find out who this person who wrote the book is. So I saw that you are a scriptwriter as well, and I was wondering if when you wrote the novel, you were planning to have it made into film or a TV series at some point, because there are amazing images. But then again, it could be that it has to do with your background and you not being able to avoid writing in specific, like visualizing a scene. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I didn't think about that. I didn't. I think it would have sort of taken me away too much from the book in a way if I had been thinking, will this work on television? Will it not? Because it's also quite an interior book. You're very much in her head and in his head.
Right.
But I do.
But nevertheless, when you're reading, you can actually see, like, for example, with the drowning scene, that little minute idea of the mothers, the protective mothers at the beach, forming like a wall, like a screen, so that the child does not see the dead person, is such a subtle detail, but it talks about finesse in writing, I don't know, in creating a whole idea. Sorry that I interrupted you.
No, not at all. I was just going to say, but you're right. I do see when I write, I mean, I've only written 2 books, so let's not get carried away. But
You
I
are a writer, of
do-
course you are.
but I
Best-selling
do write
writer.
in the scene. I see it. So I see the scene. So I have to I have to physically visualize it, actually. So in a way, yeah. And whether that's because I worked in documentaries the reason I started writing scripts, I mean, I didn't have anything made, but it was sort of how I was coming out of television documentaries and into writing for the first time. It was how I saw things. But actually, I think I've always read more than I have read screenplays. I've always read books much more. And so I feel much more comfortable writing prose, actually, than I did writing scripts. But I do see, yes, I do break things down in a sort of scene by scene, and I see them as scenes. So I do visualize them, yeah.
So I don't want to monopolize the conversation because I tend to do that, but I have just another question. There was this, no, 2 questions. One is the parallelism, if you wanted to do that or if it just came up naturally, because I think that there is a parallel between Catherine and Nancy protecting their husbands in a way, and that came up, and I thought, is this a point of view from the writer that women tend to protect their men even in the worst of situations, or it's just my interpretation? You know, because Nancy had the photographs, right? But she protected Stephen from knowing all of this, probably because she knew her child in a way, which leads me to the next question. But
I saw them
and Catherine not
less.
telling him.
Yeah, I saw them less as I didn't particularly see them as protecting their husbands, actually. In some ways, with Nancy, I think it was more she was sort of still holding her son and those last moments jealously to her. And in a way, I think she created this whole story around what had happened.
Right.
And I think she kept it from Stephen, perhaps in part because she didn't want him unpicking it or interrogating it,
Okay.
making it unravel. Whereas actually, if she could hold it to herself and keep it contained, because she could have destroyed the photos, but she didn't. She
Right.
didn't dare to do that. And I think with Catherine, I mean, I think there was a sense that maybe they would be able, she and Nancy would come to some understanding, but they couldn't, because I think Nancy could not believe, would not have wanted to believe the truth about her son.
Yeah.
And yet, the perfect stranger idea of what had happened in Spain seems to be a reflection of what her relationship with her own child was, you know, because we're first presented with this idea of a very I don't know how to put it because it's English is not my language, but
A very
like
incestuous,
a very
right, Sasha?
demanding,
Yes,
right?
too
He's
close,
very
too close.
demanding
Yeah,
as a child.
yeah.
And then when we come to Catherine's story, she says, no, it was a perfect day. It was the first time that I had like a good like bonding with my child during my blues, like my postpartum blues. But the whole idea of how Nancy creates it, she wants desperately to have her own child be a victim, but she sort
Yes.
of despises that little boy at the beginning. I don't know, like he's very taxing. That's the word I was looking for. He's a very taxing child, right?
Yeah, he's a demanding, busy boy, small boy. Yeah.
Right. And he
I
turns
think,
out to
yeah,
be later the rapist. But I was
yes.
wondering if there was like a parallel between the 2 women that you were seeking actively in a way.
Wasn't particularly, I mean, I think it was partly Nancy just demonizing Catherine from you know, from the beginning, that she was a bad, cold mother, that her way of sort of, the only way she could understand in a way why Catherine would never have got in touch with her and never have said, thanked them, never have, was to write her off as a cold, heartless, selfish person who could get away with having had an affair with her son. And she, so I think it was more that. I think it was more about her demonizing. And I think she just had a complete blind spot when it came to her own child. I think she could not, it was too unbearable for her ever to feel or to have other people criticize her child. So even so,
Right.
you get a sort of glimpse of what it had been like when he was at nursery school, and people felt, you know, other parents maybe complaining or him being in trouble. And she absolutely had a blind spot. She could not. It was intolerable for her to hear any criticism of him from anybody else. But she must have known. And I think, I mean,
Right, right.
it's a kind of book you could never write a sequel to, but I occasionally wondered about if I did write anything else with any of those characters, it would be the Nancy and Jonathan relationship. But I don't know that I want to go there, actually.
Yes, do it. We want to read it.
But I'm expecting whatever comes from you right now, because
Me
I
too.
loved the way you write. Thank
Yeah.
you very
Yes,
much for this meeting.
Well,
That's
thank
it,
you.
Maca.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Maca. Renee, I'll read your grocery list. I would love everything you write, so
Yeah.
please write it.
No.
Vane, we have another question, Renee.
It's not a question. I just want to say thank you for this book, Renee. I am a mad person for thrillers. Those are my go-to readings when I need to relax. I'm a bit weird like that. I don't like romantic comedies to relax. I like thrillers. And basically, this is because thrillers, they don't put you to think. But your book is an amazing thriller that actually got us to think, because, and Nora won't let me lie, we normally don't read thrillers in the book club because we want to discuss like topics and I don't know. And your book gave us the two of the best worlds, like discussing serious topics, and as Nora said earlier, we could relate to all of the characters. None of them were perfect, like super good or super bad. They were real, so you could relate to them. And also this thriller where you're like, oh, that bitch, and then you're like, oh my god, she's not a bitch. I just want to thank you. Now your book is on my top 5 thrillers that I've read, and I've been recommending it.
Well,
thank you so much for this.
thank you, actually. That's so kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Vane. It's just, Renee, I'm really not exaggerating when I say, I mean, they won't let me lie. When I read it last year, I was like, we're going to read this, even though it's a thriller, and it's the best thriller I've ever read in my life. And it's like, I basically inhale thrillers like Vane. So we're not exaggerating. We've been recommending your book up and down, left and right. And we're super excited. I mean, it's like, I told you, it's like we're getting royalties because we're excited and giving it to everyone.
I'll be sending them off to you.
No, but we even, I mean, there was even some of us read on Kindle, and I buy.
No, we all did.
No, we lost her.
There she is.
Is she
Yeah, I'm
back?
sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no.
I saw you guys like, oh, frozen. Well, but just to close the comment, we loved it. We are like counting the minutes down to see the series, but I don't think it'll beat the book. Not by far.
You know who's directing it?
No, who?
Well, a Mexican director. I mean, I cannot tell you how thrilled I am. Alfonso Cuarón is directing it.
What?
I mean, it is
What? I
know
can't
your
believe
face.
it.
I thought you might. I know.
He's like a Mexican
And he's
hero. Oh my
adapted
God,
it. I know he's adapted it all himself. He's adapted the whole thing. He's written them all. He's directed them all. He's got an amazing cast because it's him.
Wow.
So
I
It's
can't
thr-
believe it,
I'm
Renee.
very thrilled.
I know. We're thrilled for you. We're very happy for you. I mean, it's totally deserved, and I hope you win. What are the like Oscars for series, Emmys? I hope you win
Emmys,
all
I
the
think.
Emmys. I hope you win
Well,
all of them.
He'll get those, not me, but that would be nice.
You too. It's your idea.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you. Moni Barra.
Hello, Renee.
Hello.
My question is about Catherine and Nicholas. Was your intention from the beginning for Catherine to leave Nicholas, or do you think at some point you thought there could be a happy ending?
Oh, you mean Robert,
between
her
both of
husband?
them?
You
Yes,
mean
her
her
husband, sorry.
Yes.
Mhm.
I suppose at the beginning, I probably thought they might stay together, but I was undecided. Actually, I was undecided. And by the time I got to the end, I thought there was no way she could really stay with him. I couldn't see, particularly if she was now starting to be honest with herself, honest with her son. If she'd carried on in the relationship, then it would have continued the dishonesty, actually, and she would have been faking it to a degree. And I think she'd sort of come to a place where she could finally be herself, actually, and finally be open, particularly with her son. I think it was the important relationship in the end for her was the one with her son, and to repair that and to help repair him. So I was undecided. I think these things you kind of work out as you go along, actually, and you get to know your characters a bit better, and then it's easier to sort of think, well, what would they do in this situation? Because they're clearer and more concrete by that stage, you hope.
Thank you, Moni. Do you have another question? Yeah.
Yes, just that if this is your favorite genre of books, and if you would recommend any other type of thriller or any book that you like the most of this specific type.
I tend not to. I tend not to read a huge number of thrillers, but I do. A writer I love is Lionel Shriver. Have you read?
Yes, we discussed it here.
So I did love We Need to Talk About Kevin, I think is a great book. And because she's quite dark, but I think she has a great wit as well.
We loved it. It was
But
one
I
of
tend
our first
she's
books, and it was
fabulous.
like the subject is very complicated.
She goes to difficult places, I think, doesn't she? She does go to difficult places. But I also love, one of my favorite writers is Elizabeth Strout, which is not who wrote Olive Kittredge. I'm sure you've read that, which I adored, and Olive again. And at the moment, I'm reading Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which is basically based on David Copperfield, the Dickens David Copperfield, but she's made it into a contemporary, which is good. It's taken me a while to get into it, but it's an amazing story. Quite a distinctive voice, which you sort of have to get used to. I did anyway, but no, it's an amazing book. But no, I don't read huge. I mean, one thriller I did love years ago, again, I'm sure you've read it, Before I Go to Sleep.
Yes, I loved it.
Which I really enjoyed.
So I'm writing down everything.
Okay.
We haven't read, we haven't read it, discussed it here, but I like Maca become obsessed when we read like a good book, and then I start to read everything. So I already read The Secretary, which I don't doubt will also become a series later. Do you have any plans to do anything after that? Are you writing
Yes,
anything?
no, I'm in the middle of, I wrote a book in lockdown, which I've shoved in a bottom drawer, but I'm now nearly at the end of a first draft of something else, which is, I won't say what it is in case I jinx it, but it's a character from someone else's novel, actually, a novel that was written in the 30s with a particular character in it. Oh,
sorry.
no, that's fine.
The mic was open.
So I'm doing, I suppose it's what you'd call an origin story of this particular character. So so it will sort of be a thriller. The book was a thriller written in the 30s, but it's historical, which I've not done before. And I feel daunted by it. It's getting longer and longer and longer, but I'm nearly at the end of a first draft. And then I like the rewriting and the rewriting. So there's lots to edit, actually. And doing an historical one, it kind of felt too linear in a way. So I know I need to sort of chop it around and put the end at the beginning and then, so it's not just
Don't take too long. We're waiting for it.
I'm like my agent. Don't take too
I know. We're going to put pressure on you just like your agent. But I'm so very happy about your series. I mean, it is an amazing book. It's an amazing subject, and what Vanessa said a while earlier, I never put thrillers to discuss in the book clubs, Renee, because I think it like beats the purpose of like a discussion, because there's not much to discuss. I mean, who did it and what happened, but there's like not a profound discussion on complicated subjects. And that's what I like about this book club. That's what we do always. And here, like Vane said, we discussed everything from the Me Too movement, from how we judge people, from how people redeem themselves, from who becomes, or who do you think like is a normal character, and then it turns out to be the villain, like Robert, and her empowerment at the end when she decided that she did not want to stay with Robert, and what you said, that she wanted to repair the relationship with her child. Motherhood, how we always get like thrown back because of motherhood, and a lot of things, how tired we are, how a lot of things that we don't say, a lot of things that we're afraid to say what we really think. So it was like a really profound book and a thriller, and it was like the perfect book because I love thrillers also. So it's not just that we're saying it because you're here, but we really, really enjoyed your book, and we think, I mean, I won't speak for everyone, but I think it's really a perfect book, and I don't know how it's going to translate in a series because, as you say, Catherine is a lot in her head. So we're excited to see how.
Well, he's such a great director, isn't he? He's such a great director. I think he'll
amazing
pull it off somehow,
that he's
I'm
going
sure.
to direct. No, but I mean, Renee, it's incredible. I mean, it's a testament to how good the book is and how good your writing was that he is going to be the one to direct it. How fun.
Thank you.
Anyone else, guys, want to say anything to Renee before we leave? Let me just see if anyone raises their hand. Vale is asking, when does
it come out?
Yeah.
I've been told either this summer or the autumn. It'll be this year, but the sort of latter end of this year, which gives me time to get my next draft out. I hope.
Yes,
I was going to,
please.
it's not going to be. So summer or autumn.
Adorable. You are. Thank you, Renee, for accepting to talk with us. I know it was like a touch and go with the time difference and everything. We really, really appreciate you being so famous now and all. I mean, having a series on Apples, and Cuarón as your director to talk with the book club. I know about your busy schedule and everything, and we really appreciate you being here talking to us. Answering like questions that I imagine you have answered 1,000,000 times. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you all for taking so much care and for reading it. So
thank you. There are here, so I mean, a lot of comments of congratulations. I can send them to you later. But thanks so much, and we will be waiting for your series and your next book, even if it's your go series.
All right. Thank you very
much. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Renee. Thank you.
Déjame picarle.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
No se salgan, no se salgan.
No, pero ¿cómo le pico? Detener grabación. Okay. Thank you, guys.